Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever wanted to understand why having a super strong educational foundation in the commercial real estate space is so important, then you're going to want to listen to every single word of today's conversation, because today's guest not only has more than 20 years of real-world commercial real estate experience, he's also an expert that is focused on helping people to invest in the commercial real estate space. Well, and just to kind of throw out a couple of things, just so you understand, he's helped to educate more than 200,000 people in live events, and he's also analyzed over $6 billion, that is with the B, dollars worth of commercial real estate. He's also the author of the 2 best strategies to profit with commercial real estate. And he's also husband and father. And I'd like to welcome to today's show, Terry Hale. Terry, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Billy. How's it going, man?
I'm doing really well. And this is fantastic to talk to you. Love the pre-conversation. And you've been doing so many things that I'm sure that so many people are going to be really, really positively impacted by your words and your knowledge today, man.
Yeah.
Listen, Terry, so I kind of told you a little bit in the beginning and would love for you to help us to understand, where do you live in the United States?
So I live in this, I call it the smallest town with the biggest name, and it's Malibu, California. And we're basically sitting on a little more than 20 miles of beachfront U.S. real estate. And if the folks here, if you could imagine the entire U.S. from California over to Florida, right? So we're over here on the west coast of California, and we are right outside of Los Angeles. And there's a whole bay that spans from the famous Santa Monica Pier over to the tip of Malibu, which is called Point Dume, or Point Dumettes, and Point Dume all the way through the whole bay. Point Dume and that particular area, which I have an estate property on, a little over an acre, a modest property. And I've lived there now for a little over 20 years with my lovely wife, Lisa Marie, and my son, Cashton. And Malibu's a great place to live, man. And it's definitely very expensive real estate.
Yeah. And it is a beautiful place over on the left coast of the U.S. So thanks for describing that. It was beautiful, and I almost feel like I'm there with you, man. That's awesome. So listen, the other thing, Terry, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
The most positive thing that happened to me within the last 24 hours was my moment of gratitude, my moment when I actually open my eyes and take my first breath of air. And at that point, shortly thereafter, my son is jumping on my head. And and that's my true accomplishment. I always say that you're not really truly wealthy until you have something that money can't buy. And I've said that many times in my life after my son Cashton came into my world. But I didn't start having children or my one child, I didn't have him until I was already I was 40 years old. So dating myself now, being 47 and a half, life happens and it's a good thing. And, I feel wonderful. And that's what I'm mainly grateful for, is just to have the opportunity to keep going and to appreciate life.
Yeah, I love that, man. And when you talk about Cashton being able to jump on you and give you kind of that hug and say, "Hey, daddy," right after your first breath of the morning, it's just, I think so many times we forget, Terry, that it's the little things in life that really can bring us the most joy and the most satisfaction. And I appreciate you just right off the bat helping us to remember that it is not always just about money. It is about so many other things. So thanks for that, man. Listen, so I gave a couple of the highlights of the things and talking about you and the lives that you've impacted already, but would love for you to share with the Going Long family. Tell us your backstory, man. Help us understand a little bit more about you.
Sure. So I recently, and unfortunately, due to influenza, I lost my father in February of this year. But he was older in age and he was going through dialysis. So that was part of what happened. And the reason why I mention that is, again, just to bring back and hit home for everybody on how important family is, and especially in a time like now, right? Wanted just to kind of throw that out there. So my father was a contractor, and I grew up in that world, and his brothers as well. So I came from real estate already, and noting that I came from the other side of the fence, right? It's like there's one person that's actually there that's got the money, and they hire the person to go swing the hammer, right? So that's why I mentioned my father. And so when I grew up, respectively saying this, I knew that I didn't want to do that. And of course, I was the only boy. I got three older sisters, Italian, and here Italian Irish, of course. And so I'm in a position where they're wanting me to kind of take on the business, and I decided right away that it wasn't something I wanted to do. So when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I met this gentleman who was a developer that my family was working for. And I started asking certain questions. And if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So I started asking certain questions. Long and short, this person became a mentor in my life and showed me actually how to do the business of commercial real estate. But they also taught me, Billy, how to do things the wrong way. And again, I say that respectfully. So what they taught me was to get out there and to find a project using a certain formula, a certain criteria. And at this point, I was only making, a very small fraction of the earnings, because they were taking the lion's share because they were showing me how to do it. So I was actually, paying paying it forward and doing it. And so they showed me how to do acquisitions. But the problem is, when I graduated from that and I started going off on my own, I started creating relationships with banks at a very early age and financiers, and they were loaning me money at a very high rate. So it was very advantageous for them to loan me the money, right? Because they were making big returns. So here I'm thinking they're doing good by me, but actually I'm getting hosed because they're taking so much money out of the deal. Long and short, the deals were skinny. It was a realization that it came to me one time when I made a call and I said, "Hey, I got this great deal. It was one of the best deals I had in my early career." And they said, "Sorry, we can't loan you any money." And that's one of those things, like, people experience the greats. They experience all this failure, but they never give up because they have that relentlessness for success, right? Kind of like yourself and my guy. Yeah. Like, you can't give up. Like, those are just blessings that are given to us when we get this negative energy. So we just turn it to a positive. So with that said, I asked why. And they said, "Because your debt to income ratio sucks." And I said, "My debt to income ratio?" There's like, "Yeah, you have too much debt because you bought too much property, and you don't have enough income because the properties that you bought didn't support its income, right? It didn't support to cover the debt service." So right away, Billy, I reverse engineered my entire thinking. And I said, okay, everything I'm going to do from this point on is going to be a value add play, right? Yeah. It's going to have vacancy. It's going to have low rents. It's going to have a distressed seller. It's going to be a situation where I can leverage and do seller financing. So I never have to go to a bank. I never have to actually ask somebody for money. And once I figured that out, the world opened up. And now here in my office, we're, making calls every single day. I have a dedicated staff that just does acquisitions. And we're putting deals under contract. Matt, that's sitting 15 feet away from me. You just forwarded me a contract, right, Matt? Yeah. Yep. Just forwarded me a contract that just got accepted. It just came through, and these are all DocuSign. It's a great opportunity to get in there. Seller finance deal, and you can see right here that's a DocuSign that just came through to us. Love it. And these deals, they come through all the time, Billy. And it's crazy because there's so many people out there that are distressed that'll actually become the bank. We had somebody the other day, they said, "Hey, we only want to do this deal if we can sell our finance because we don't have to pay a capital gains. And the gentleman's too old. He doesn't want to do a 1031. So these opportunities are amazing. It's really opened things up for us.
Wow. And so I love the fact that these opportunities that you have your team focused, and there are many opportunities and they continue to open up. And by the way, if you're only listening to us, you need to jump over and watch the video version, because literally Terry just
gave us some social proof of what they're doing every single day in his office. So I think that's awesome. And jump over and see us, and you can see the smile on Terry's face from ear to ear as well. So a couple of things you just said, Terry, that I think, people, I just want us to hear what you said again. Number one, you said that you asked early on, right? You asked the question, and you asked the question, which was why. And when you asked the question why, you actually understood this whole new concept of debt to income. And it also has then helped to formulate your moving forward strategy, right? And I think that is phenomenal that you learn by doing. And there's also something else that you said. You realized that your father gave you a great example to follow. And at the same time, you realized that's what you did not want to do. And so sometimes it's more about realizing what you don't want to do than what you do want to do. What do you think about that?
I think you're spot on, man. I mean, why? I remember one time I came home when I was young, and it was back in the day, because again, I'm 47 and a half, so I can say back in the day now, right? But I was kicking a skateboard down the street out here living in California, and we really didn't have any seasons. We're pretty much 70 and perfect year round out here in California. And I remember kicking my skateboard down the street, and some of my friends saying, "Hey, your dad's laying on your lawn." And I said, "What do you mean?" And so I remember going as fast as I could on my skateboard to go over there to see him. And I said, "Are you okay, Dad?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm okay. My back just hurts." Like literally, he worked so hard that he had to lay down on the lawn when he got home from work to stretch out, because he couldn't even make it to the door. I mean, literally, like no joke, like that's where he was. That's how hard this man worked his entire life, these little signs, man, they're little things, little signs that come to us. And then we have that realization that, hey, maybe I don't want to go through that. Maybe there's a path of least resistance that's more effective that can actually, be my path.
Yeah, no, and being able to find your own path is something that is very, very important. And so speaking of which, I'm going to go back to something. So if you're watching us, which I highly recommend that you jump over and watch, you have something written behind your right shoulder there. And I think it's interesting. It's WBD, which is actually Wealth by Design. And I'm just visualizing a couple of things that you have talked about. Help us understand a little bit about where does Wealth by Design come from? Like, what's the origin story of that?
So Wealth by Design actually came from one of my team members that I really truly appreciate. Her name is Margarita, and we had this original design that was Terry Hale, the real deal, and it didn't really resonate with me. I am the real deal, but I don't think that I have to sit here just like on this podcast, as you guys can imagine. I'm very real. 20 plus years experience in this business. I'm not someone who flaunts my success. It's one of those things that really, it came together for me just because it was a desire. And again, that relentlessness for success. And I think my team around me supports me in that, which I greatly appreciate. And it was something that they thought of, that she thought of. And it truly is Wealth by Design. I'm not sure where it came from, if it was just one of these things where she thought it was a cool name, or she really understood my backstory, my history of why I'm here and how they support me. But that's where it spanned from. And I think it just comes from energy personally.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
No, and also thanks to Margarita for coming up with that and working that and brainstorming it with you. And I guess when as I'm talking to you, just to recognize that you're very intentional about the things that you decided to do, the questions that you asked, and also the results that you are getting and that you have been getting over the last 20 years, and most importantly on the lives that you're impacting. So when you do things by design and then execute against that, I think it says a lot about the individual. So I was just curious as we talked about that. So Terry, you focused on commercial real estate, right? And one of the things that we want to continue to help people do is really understand some of the different facets of real assets in general. And so you've, once again, by design, made a decision to go into the commercial versus, like, let's say, residential space. So help us understand, why did you make that decision? And I guess, how has that played to your strengths?
Right. So that's a great question. So noting that, I was involved in real estate prior to, so I'm always watching real estate happen. and noting that the nation's millionaires here in the US, there's over 90% of the nation's multimillionaires are making their fortune from commercial real estate. It was natural for me to understand that commercial is nothing more than just boxes on dirt. So unlike some people that maybe aren't comfortable with it, I want to just say that it's refreshing, because when it comes to commercial real estate, it is just a business decision. So unlike somebody that's in a residential, house, and if you think about it, what's in the house, right? It's a box. They have their bedroom where they either have dreams or nightmares of foreclosure, right? They have their living room where they live, because that's why it's called a living room. That's where everybody, and then of course everybody congregates in the kitchen and sits around and eats and has stories, and they live their life. So there's life involved in that. What's so cool is that with commercial real estate, it's just a business decision. You have two sides of a piece of paper. You have a liability or you have an asset. Before, I was focused early on in my career looking at these assets. So I was using certain formulas, like a capitalization rate formula, to buy it. Then when I refocused on, of course, when I got my no, right? And they said, we can't loan you any more money. Right. And then I re-engineered the thinking of this deal, reverse engineered it. I noted that with commercial real estate, if you're dealing with a story, a reason, there's reasons why your listeners join. There's a reason why you're engaging with me, a reason why I'm engaging with you. We're all sharing and giving back. It's a pay forward. Yeah. Someone that's got a story in commercial real estate that's distressed, and all of a sudden you're not dealing with that asset class, you're dealing with a liability. And then what we're able to do is just to look in how we can work towards a mutual benefit, resolve their issue, and still at the same point make a lot of money. So with commercial real estate, it's super refreshing. You're dealing with people that are not totally connected to their property. I've had people, Billy, that have said, you know what? Just take it. Dude, I'm just going to sell for what I owe. I just want to get away from it.
So listen, I love the fact that you're talking about this right now, because I think it is so real on the commercial side. Can you give us an example? Like maybe one, you don't have to necessarily give the name, but just because I want people to feel exactly what you're talking about, because you're telling a story that's helping people decide, commercial, residential, and why. So this is awesome, man.
Well, I'm gonna take you with me then. So
okay, cool, awesome.
We're gonna go on.
So by the way, so this is another reason. If you're not watching us, you need to turn whatever you're doing. Make sure you go join the video version of this, because Terry's gonna give us some exclusive insight. Awesome, love this.
So there's the outside right there. This is where
man.
All is. All right. So just nice. To give you a quick little visual. All right. And then I'm gonna walk you over here. This is my office. Here's Margarita. There's Matt. Say hi, guys.
Hey, there's Margarita. Hey, Matt.
And then we're going to come over here. I'm going to take you to this. By the way, when I did my original radio, this was my.
Okay. Nice.
so and just in case people are not actually watching this and they're just listening, I want to make sure I stay focused.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So behind me, this is a project that's in another part of the country of U.S., which is actually in Florida, in St. Augustine, Florida, which is a great little beach community. Medium-priced homes are around $500,000 to $750,000 on average, and this right here is a self-storage facility. So the story behind this deal is this project was actually 90% full physical occupancy. Okay. All right. And it was actually 30% economic occupancy, which means that only 30% of the people out of the 90% were paying the bill. And so what happened at the end of the day was an elder couple that owned it. They just wanted to travel the nation. They wanted to jump in their recreational vehicle, their RV, and just travel around the U.S. because that's what people do out here in the U.S. They just they probably tour out there in your country. But the fact is that the current manager was a friend of the family that they had hired. And the gentleman was basically telling people that they can get a discount on their rent if they pay cash. Well, where do you think that money went? It went into Hip National Bank, right? Into his pocket. And at the end of the day, these folks, they just said, okay, well, we got to get out from this deal. So they sold it. They sold it to me. I bought it for $480,000. They had ended up carrying paper, 4% interest. I put down $100,000, which got brought in from a capital partner, which was very easy to get. And we turned the property around and we sent out a mailer and a online, offline, a direct mail campaign. And we contacted all the people and said, hey, there's a new pride of ownership, either pay or it's time to move out, and we ended up taking it from 30% back to 90%. It increased the value. And the same individual, this broker, Eric, that housed the deal, he ended up contacting me and he said, "Hey, I know these other brothers out of New York that need to do a 1031 exchange. Do you want to sell it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'll sell it for $1 million because I feel that's the value." He came back and we closed it. I had ownership of it for 6 months and I sold it for $900,000. So it's pretty fat.
Yeah. So you know what? And what I love about that, number one, you gave us a very clear example as to why you choose to use your skill set in the commercial real estate arena, right? It's very clear. You can even see the smile on your face as you're ultimately helping someone to solve a problem, right? You talked about the fact that they just wanted to get away from it. Well, you went in, you had a very clear system, and you had a clear way of actually moving that economic occupancy from 30 back up to where it should have been a lot closer to 90. And then as a result of solving someone else's problem, you were able to provide them a way to get out of their problem and also profit by doing the right thing. And so it's just a way that commercial real estate can work for someone with the skill set that you have, right? I think that's a phenomenal example.
Anybody could have done that same deal. I mean, seriously, I never visited the property. I was in the Jacksonville, which is an area right outside of St. Augustine. I was in the Jacksonville Business Journal, and they talked about, because the broker did a write-up about the deal. And they were talking about self-storage in particular for that particular property type. I deal with all properties for commercial. It's not just self-storage.
Yeah.
But he talked about it. He's like, "Look, this guy never visited the property, never went there once. I took a drone video of it. I sent him the drone video. He knew what he was buying. He knew that there was upside in it. He knew that there was a problem, and that's how he made his money."
Yeah. So, and I love this, man, because you're talking about, you're in California now, right? And you're talking about something that happened in Florida, and you had your buyers in New York. One of the things that we love talking about here in the long distance investing arena is it doesn't matter where you live, because as long as you're focused on solving problems, there are problems that are happening all over the place. So help us understand also too, Terry, like, because a lot of people talk about just invest in your backyard. Like, you've obviously made a business, a livelihood of solving people's problems from all over the US, right? So tell us why you've made that, once again, very methodical decision to not just invest in, the western part of the United States or in California.
For sure. So first off, I'd love to invest in California. And there's so many people that invest in California. Most people don't even know why people invest in California. There's a reason for that. California, not to get too deep into tactics and strategies here, just on this call, but the reason why most people invest in California is not because of the movie stars, not because of the musicians, not because of Hollywood, not because of Malibu or any of the beach communities. It's because they invest here. It's a one action state. And here in the United States of America, California is one of the very few states that have something called a one action. And what that means is that if somebody goes default, then there's two situations, right? They can go after the property to get the property back, or they can go after the individual, okay? And California is the state where they can either go after the property, the individual, and they always go after the property. So to go recourse financing versus non-recourse, recourse means you personally guarantee, non-recourse means that you do not. Everything that I do is non-recourse, okay? When I'm doing seller financing. So California is that place. Now, here in California, there's also using a cap rate, and a capitalization rate is either a single digit or a double digit number. It's a very simple formula. You got your gross income minus your itemized expenses, which equals your net operating income. And then your net operating income divided by the purchase price you're paying for it equals the cap rate. A very simple formula. Let's not get into that. But the fact is, here in California.
Thank you for breaking that down for us, though, by the way. That's important. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Here in California, everything is trading at a very low cap rate. So with capitalization rates, the higher the cap, the better for the buyer. The lower the cap, the better for the seller. I can't buy here in California, Billy. Everything here is like 3, 4, and 5 cap.
Yeah.
So I'm overpaying for property. The average person that invests here in California, they're not making money until like year 3, 4, and 5 because they have to play appreciation, depreciation, cash flow.
Yep.
So everything that I do, your whole podcast is designed around you being in Barcelona, Spain, and you're investing here in the US-based market.
Yep.
I'm a perfect transition for that because guess what? I'm a Malibu guy that very, very rarely do I leave the bubble. But every single deal, what we got, guys, like 10 deals under contract right now, something like that. All those 10 projects, where are we at? We're Illinois, right? Oklahoma, Texas, 4 in Texas. So everything that we're doing is outside of California.
Right.
And we're never going to go to those properties, you know?
Love this.
So,
yeah.
So it's perfect for everybody that's maybe just thinking about it in their mindset, but you really have to make that connection. I'm the guy that's been investing for over 20 years. And I tell you what, I've only bought a couple properties here besides my estate properties here in California. 99.9% of all of my business and through my entire career is out of state. And I rarely visit a property.
So, you know, this is great. And our family is going to love what you're talking about, right? I guess my whole thing is what, in your opinion, why do they tell us then to just buy in your backyard, buy real estate in your backyard?
That's the same thing as when people say, if you're going to do commercial, just do multifamily. It's one of these things because people, I call them sheeples, the average person, right? It's just a sheeple. So they're kind of broken down and they're told what to do. So they listen. It's much easier to have a definitive plan of action and have somebody just tell you what to do so you know what to do versus being an entrepreneur and being an individual and design your own wealth and get out there and do your own thing and reinvent your own wheel per se, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, the wheel has been reinvented because we didn't stay with the wagon wheel, man. I mean, you know, the wheels have been reinvented. There's better balance, there's better speed. And for that reason, don't fall into the mindset that you can't reinvent yourself. Yep. You can reinvent your own wheel for more balance and for more speed. And that's really important. Most people mistake motion for action. And just because you're going through the motions of doing something does not mean that you're going to be successful. You have to take serious action and understand what works.
I love that. And I'm just going to repeat that. Don't mistake motion for action. That was awesome. Yeah. Hashtag Terry Hale says it. Love that, man. And you're right. So it's this concept. And it's one of these things where I just, every single time I'm like, yeah, just buy in your backyard and invest in real estate right where you are. I'm just thinking you may want to do that, but don't just keep your mindset just to that. There's so many more opportunities for you to be able to go beyond that. But what do you think keeps people back from actually looking beyond their backyard? You kind of told us a little bit, but because you've impacted over 200,000 lives, right? You've seen it firsthand. Like, share with us, man.
Yeah. So I think, like I just had mentioned, like I remember going, and I'll just kind of break it down like this. So I remember going to this talk, and there was a gentleman, which I'm not going to drop his name, respectfully, because he's out there and he's someone who's been on like one of these Flip These House shows. But he used to share stages with me, and he was kind of like in the mindset of like, no one's going to go ahead and take action with me because Terry's going up against me. And so he had to try to shoot me down, and that's okay. Right. So this was part of like what wears out, and you got competition. So he was out there and he made this statement, which was kind of funny. And he said, look, before you ever start off in commercial, make sure you do a house deal first, because you got to get your beak wet. And I thought that was really funny. So once I went on, I actually shared to everybody. I said, look, the difference between dealing with houses versus dealing with commercial property is kind of like learning to drive a car versus riding a motorcycle. Like, yeah, it's the vehicle that gets you from A to B, but it's also an entirely different vehicle. So you have to understand how to do it. And I said, and the benefit to doing commercial versus the regular house buying business is you're not dealing with all that negative energy of preying on somebody that's actually going to lose their home. You're dealing with commercial real estate, and it's a business decision. So my point is the mindset around, okay, well, where should I go with commercial? Which property type should I jump into? Most people are accustomed to like living in either in an apartment or a house, which is where they live. So naturally they think, okay, now I need to move into multifamily versus doing something like, assisted living, senior living, shopping centers, retail, ambulatory care, congregate living, self-storage, for example. And so they gravitate towards that multifamily niche. But with that multifamily niche, if people are ever going to ask for forgiveness in a cyclical market where it goes down, you're going to get a dramatic drop in rents. And people at that point will always ask for forgiveness. So it's a tough property type. There's other property types that are lower on the risk scale, like self-storage. And you can get into these property types, which is entirely different. But the mindset around people taking action in their own backyard versus from afar, it's one of those things, Billy, where it's just taking action, period. A lot of times people are just hesitant because they think like, oh, well, it's too good to be true, or it can't happen for me. But once they actually see the success of someone else, and this, they see someone else actually achieve success, then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, I can do it too. And all of a sudden it's like, it's like an adrenaline shot. They were like off to the races.
Yeah.
So let me be the person that shares with all your folks here that, when I started out, I most definitely was in the wrong space. I was on the other side of the fence, doing contract, being a contractor, doing that work. And I'll tell you, it's much easier, and you get a lot more benefit out of doing it just from a pen push to the paper. You guys can do it. You guys can do this business.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that once again, giving us really concrete examples. So you've given us kind of, I recognized it, but I just want to make sure. So you've talked in the commercial real estate space about, multifamily, right? You've talked about that. You've talked about self-storage a couple of times, and you just talked about it a little bit, but I just want to make sure that people understand when you talk about commercial real estate, what exactly give us some of the examples that where your team is playing in the commercial real estate space. And I'm also going to say, and I know you'll tell them later, but they can even go to your website and see different types of opportunities that you've done in the past. But help us understand, when you say commercial real estate, what does that really mean?
So commercial real estate, we obviously have our houses, and that's residential. And then where commercial actually starts to format is anything over 5 units in multifamily. So anything 5 units plus or multifamily is considered commercial real estate. Then there's dirt, right? We all know that. And then you have different zoning for dirt. You got agricultural, you got residential zoning, and then you got commercial. So once something's actually rubber stamp hits the napkin, regardless of what country you're in, the zoning goes out to being commercial or industrial, and it could be a mixed use of both. So when it comes to like self-storage is an industrial property type, but it's still considered a commercial property. So anything that's not agricultural or residential is referred to as commercial. And the most popular that kind of I just rambled off was multifamily. That's commercial real estate, right? We obviously have retail, which are boxes that people occupy for space where they sell goods and things of that nature. We have office space. You know this as well. That's all commercial. You've got shopping centers. And then you have shopping centers, which are a bunch of boxes with one anchor tenant. And that anchor tenant actually houses the main purpose of why someone would be there. So they'll come into that big box chain like a grocery store. And then there's all these small little boxes next door that are specialty type of businesses. And then so after shopping centers, then we obviously have big warehouses. Those are factories, things of this nature. Then we have industrial shops, which actually do machine work and things of this nature. And even mobile home parks. And as I mentioned, the whole assisted living, senior living care facilities. So that's all commercial real estate, the bulk of it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love how you gave us the understanding between residential, agricultural, and even gave us the industrial piece. So anyone, if you're listening to this and you're still thinking, wow, that was really cool. Terry just gave you like a mini masterclass in terms of what are the different types of assets that are in the commercial real estate space. So I'm going to recommend that you go and rewind and listen to it again, because you don't get that every day. So Terry, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. And like the thing is, I want to keep talking to you forever and ever and ever, man, because you're dropping so much knowledge. This is awesome. And I know that the whole family is loving this. But there's a certain point we get to the going long final three. Right. And so I think we talked about it before, and this is, I guess it's that point in time. But the thing is, Terry, I never ask anybody the going long final three until you tell me that you're ready for me to ask you the going long final three. So my question is, are you ready?
No.
All right, cool. Then I'm going to ask you another question. You're loving this too. I like it. That's the first time anyone's ever said no. So, hey, by the way, who are you helping nowadays? We talked about 200,000 people. Who are you helping?
Yeah. So what I've done is I went out there and kind of just a quick little backstory on it, and then we'll get to the final three. But at one point in time, Billy, I really never thought of myself as a trainer, a teacher, a mentor, a coach, this person that would be out there and doing this. Yeah. It's just because, I kind of got left short. I got three older, large Italian sisters, and I never even could get a plate of food at my house. It was one of those things. And my parents, they never said be home when the street lights come on. They were kind of out of gas by the time it was up to my parental supervision. So that's why I feel I'm such a great parent today. One day, I was already doing my commercial stuff, and my wife said to me, she said, Terry, this is before we were married, and I've been with the same woman, Lisa Marie, since 1999. And this was when we were just dating. And so she said, hey, there's this event thing going on, and maybe we should go to it. It's about what you're doing with commercial, and someone's kind of talking about some residential stuff and some commercial stuff. And I said, nah, that's not for me. And then she's like, well, it's in New York. And my wife's from Brooklyn, New York, right? So she's like, let's just go because it'll give me an excuse to go. And we can use it as a write-off because it's a business thing. And I was like, all right, I get you. When I ended up going to that event, I met this gentleman, and things kind of changed because I was trying to outsource and duplicate myself, Billy. And what happened was this gentleman, his name's Ron LeGrand. And I ended up meeting this gentleman, Ron. Some of you guys maybe have heard of him, some of you maybe not, but he's kind of like the godfather of information marketing and the house buying business and real estate. To summarize the event and the story, I met this gentleman. He took a liking to me. Shortly thereafter, I co-authored a book with him, and he showed me how to do information marketing. And I went out there and I started teaching all these people. And that's how I was able to reach close to, 200, 300,000 people. And, he showed me how to get out there and show people what to do. But then at one point in time, I actually went into retirement because I thought, hey, information marketing is cool, but I'm not able to really gauge people's success and failures and truly help them. So I closed that chapter of my journey after authoring 8 books, curriculums of training. Back in the day, we used to call it an MBA, right? That's manuals, books, and audios. And we wanted everybody to have an MBA.
Love that.
And then so when I closed that chapter of my journey, I started working with people more on one-on-one basis. And now what I do is I actually mentor people, and I work with a very small group of individuals. There is a commitment for that. I need people to really stay focused on their time to be able to take it serious. But at that point, I started limited partnerships. And now what I do is I duplicate myself with people. I have people actually come out here to Malibu, have days here in the office when it's not, the whole COVID thing. And we actually take time together, and I duplicate myself the right way. And then what I do is I have a limited partnership with people, and that's how I help them. We actually partner 50-50 on deals. And that way I'm duplicating myself. And a piece of the pie, what I found is that a piece of the pie, Billy, I can have a lot more to eat. Versus just being this greedy person that just takes all of it for myself. I help people. It's not a charity event. I continue to make money over and over again. And I have highly successful people that actually get out there and join my team and learn how to do the business.
All right. Perfect. So look at that. See, everybody, you get even more value. Terry says, no, he's not ready to answer, and he drops all this value. That's awesome, man. So we love that. And you paint a really clear picture as to who you're helping and how you're helping as well. So, and like I said, we're going to make sure that people head over and check out your website and things like that. And I'm sure there's got a couple extra things for us to learn more about with the MBA. So here we go. So the very first question is, and we talked about it in the beginning, we're going to do this in like as a lightning round, let's say. So The first question, we started in the US. I like to bring it back this way. And I would love, and you've already talked about some of your roots, the Italian side, Irish side. And I don't know if that's going to influence you or not, but what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
So my favorite European city or area, I want to go to Dublin because one of my dearest friends, he ended up moving back home, and he took his wife and his son, which is very good friends with my son Cashton. So it's kind of one of these things. They're very well known in their area. They are She basically does a lot of big business in the industry. So she's a very well-known person. I can't drop her name here, but extremely well-known. She was the first woman who had actually conducted the Oscars. So yeah, it'd be a great thing to go there and check them out and have a good time there. Yeah.
Awesome. So Dublin is there. So that's another vote for Dublin. Next two questions we'll get to really quickly. The one is, you've already shared some knowledge, but what is like one lesson that you would pay forward to someone else that you've learned as a result of a mistake that you made?
A mistake.
Or learning opportunity, however you want to call it.
No, Billy, I'm with you, man. I think people learn more from mistakes than they do from success. That's for sure. And I openly can share that. It's picking the wrong business partner. I engaged with someone back in the day, and this person said that they had the wherewithal to do the business. And I trusted them, because I always say to like me is to listen to me, but to trust me is to do business. And so when you get to that level of trust, which takes a minute, but once you get there, then you can kind of not let down your guard, but entrust that someone can take it to the next level. Yep. And so choosing the wrong person in my world, that right there was one of the biggest mistakes that I made. And I learned from that. And I want to share that forward with people. Yep. That just make sure that you're doing business with people that are both ethical, moral. I'm the guy that if I'm handed back an extra $20 at the grocery store because the clerk was tired, like I give it back. Yeah. Like I'm not that person that takes, I'm the person that gives back. Yeah. So just make sure you seek people just like that.
Okay. That's a great thing to talk about in terms of business partners. So be ready for that, and ethical and moral. So this is the last question, and I've got a question for you after one last question, but what book would you recommend?
There's a book that really changed things for me, and a lot of you have heard this book, and it's been around for a long time. But the reason why it's so important for me to pass this to you and to your listeners rather, is because of mindset. And there has been a lot of books and a lot of speakers and trainers and coaches and mentors that have modeled their entire business after this book. And when people are really in a negative mindset, or maybe a lot of you guys have heard of the story of the elephant, where there's no resistance. It doesn't break free from this little rope around its front leg, because it's conditioned from when it's a pachyderm, when it's a small elephant. And it tried to pull away from this rope, and it failed, and it failed and failed and failed. And then so when it grows older, it doesn't need a bigger rope because it's already conditioned. And to break that mindset, the book that I would encourage everyone to read, if you have not already, and you can reread it again, but it'll help train your mindset to break free, is to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I think that is one of the most powerful books that someone can read, because it will open your mind. Just choose wisely when you read it. Because the moment you say you want to be a millionaire, you may realize that you want to be a multimillionaire or a billionaire. So you can choose whatever you want to in life, and life is short. And I always say this coin phrase, Billy: you have one life to live it wealthy.
So I absolutely love that. Live wealthy. And Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I think that is a wonderful, wonderful book for you to recommend to the Going Long family. So thank you very much for that, Terry.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know where to start, man. Just for you and being able to share and be vulnerable with us from the very moment that we started talking about your father, talking about seeing the things that you saw your father do that you were fortunate enough to be involved with, but also it gave you really that clarity to say, look, this is not the part of the side, this is not the side of the equation that I want to be on. You then had that hunger. You were asking questions. You were figuring out why. When you saw that, then it helped you to learn more things. And from there, not only were you in motion, more importantly, you were taking action. And you've gone from that to being able to build an organization. You're doing that all across the U.S., from wonderful the left coast of the U.S. outside of Malibu, which is fantastic. You're helping other people, over 200,000 lives. I think you even said over closer to 300,000 at this point. Numbers continue to change. And it's just phenomenal. You've given us real life examples, like not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, literally. And like I said, if you haven't seen early part of the video, you go check it out. Like Terry's literally showing around the office. And so when you're able to share so many things and help to educate one of the things that happens, Terry, is that people want to know more about you. They want to know about how they can also build their lives by design, wealth by design, like you have over your right shoulder. And so one of the things I would love to ask on their behalf, because I know that they're asking the question, is how in the world can people find out more about Terry Hale, about what you're doing, your team, and just enter into your universe, man? Help us understand. How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. So the fastest and easiest way is just to go to my website. It's my name, which is basically, just .com. So it's Terry Hale, TerryHale.com. And, I did author recently, self-published a book called The 2 Best Strategies to Profit with Commercial Real Estate. For the people with the visual, you can see it here. And I'm not selling anything. This is 100% give back. It's absolutely, I call it free 90 free. So it's totally free 90 free. If you want to get a copy of this, I'll forward you the ebook. It's just a click of a button. No big deal. All you got to do is just shoot me an email. You can email me at support, SUPPORT @terryhale.com. And if you do that, I also say, hey, pop your number through. I don't mind jumping on the phone and chat with you. See if you're a fit. I'm looking for limited partners. I'm duplicating myself. There's the learning curve, so we can talk about how that looks. But once you get on the same page and we speak the same language, then I can go ahead and show you how to build wealth. Okay.
Fantastic. So you make it really easy for us. So thank you for that, Terry. So Terry Hale, TerryHale.com. Find out lots of information, and then also being very generous, offering the free 90 free version of your book. If you just go to support at TerryHale.com, and also to giving a strategy session. So I think, I think it's a great opportunity. I've been over to your website, got lots of value there. And so I would recommend to the Going Long family to go ahead and check out Terry, take him up on his offer to get in touch. And wow, man, Terry, listen, on behalf of the entire Going Long family, I just want to thank you so much for investing your time with us today. It's been absolutely awesome, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to reconnecting with you guys. All
right. Perfect. And listen, so to the Going Long family, I want to thank you once again for investing time with Terry and I today. Look, Terry he brought it, man. He just was dropping so many knowledge bombs. It's great. It's not theory. It's actually from practice, from real life experience. And he's putting it in a way that is helping you to understand the real value around the commercial real estate space. And so, you're listening, you're watching, and you have a unique opportunity to go out and positively impact others' lives. So listen, why don't you go out and share today's episode with at least 2 or 3 other people, right? That's your way of being able to pay it forward. And also too, Terry and I would love to know what it is that you loved about today's episode. Like, what are the things that Terry talked about that really helped you? What are the things that you'd love to know more about? And he's made it easy to talk to him as well. So, and if you want to leave that in a review, you can feel free to do that on your favorite platform. If you want to make that a 5-star review, we'd love that as well. So we'll leave that part up to you, but we're also open to that type of feedback. And once again, this is Billy Keels, and I am really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. And until then, go out and make it a great day.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.